So, not too often there is this iPhone that gets really old and becomes really cheap and hence a matter of great interest. A couple of months ago, that was the iPhone 5S, which was not much recommended, but as of now, it's a 2-year-old iPhone SE, which is basically a 3-year-old iPhone 6S inside a almost 5-year-old iPhone 5S. So let's have a look. Let's talk about that. So I use an iPhone 7 as my daily phone whenever I'm not testing any other phone. So when I picked up the iPhone SE this week after a very long time, my first impression was that it's just too small. And since almost everyone uses a phone that's bigger than this, chances are you'll feel the same way too. See, if you get a smaller screen size, the keyboard will be too small. So when you type, you inevitably cover the screen or the alphabet keys. Plus, this becomes even bigger of a hassle if you have big hands. If you get a smaller screen, it means you get a smaller viewfinder while using the camera, which is not desirable. If you get a smaller screen, the videos are not fun to watch. Basically, if you get a smaller screen, chances are you're shrinking down on your user experience. So in today's time, a small screen is for a very limited demographic, and Apple might never release such a small phone again. Although if you are a part of that demographic, the SE is probably the only choice you have. But is it any good anymore? Firstly, it's what I think is the best looking iPhone Apple has ever made. Might just be my favorite design of all time in a smartphone. There is something about that rectangular frame, or the combination of aluminium and glass, or the round volume buttons that just makes this simple yet very different. I mean, you'll find phones similar to the iPhone 6, 7, 7 Plus, and even the 10. But there's nothing quite like this in the market. It's unique and very Apple. And by the way, it held up pretty well too. I mean, in these 2 years, all it has had are just some scuffs and tiny dents at the bottom. But I like to add that special care was taken since it's actually pretty easy to break this one. Get a case. So this runs on A9, which has basically been a flagship chip at one point of time. And since it's made by Apple, it means it's optimized for this hardware. So it still scores higher in Geekbench than a lot of 2018's similarly priced devices. And speaking of iOS, it's still pretty smooth and responsive. The app load-up times are not the best because there are even better chips now. But with iOS 12, Apple says that the speed and the responsiveness will improve drastically. So I'm counting on that. But then there is one thing that not a lot of people are talking about, and that is its future with augmented reality. I get it, there are not a lot of people with interests in AR as of now. But I can pretty much guarantee that this is going to be really big. An iPhone SE supports Apple's AR kit, which is really exciting for enthusiasts and even app developers. Google AR Core is basically Apple's AR kit for Android, but not a lot of devices support that under the 20K price bracket. Just a couple of Motorola devices, but not Xiaomi devices, which are the most popular in this price range. But one of the things that Xiaomi phones have, and the SE does not, is a bigger battery, and that's easily the biggest downside of a smaller phone. Now, Apple actually tells you the amount of leftover battery capacity. So in these 2 years, this unit has consumed only 19% of its entire limit, which is pretty cool. But it doesn't mean that it's going to last 10 years though, since battery will keep becoming weaker and weaker, and hence the burnout speed will increase. As far as the backup is concerned, it's just fine with about 4.5 hours of screen on time if you use it lightly, although I can totally kill this in less than a day. But last but not the least, let's talk about the camera. So it's a 12 megapixel sensor like the iPhone 6s, and it can also shoot in 4K, and as far as the images are concerned, it's a great capturer. I mean, the images always have amazing detail to them. The saturation and contrast suit to my taste. So I would say it's easily better than what you can get in this price range. In fact, it can compete with some of the flagships. Although the app is just as basic as it gets. I mean, there is no portrait mode or manual mode in the camera, and you still have to go into settings to change the video resolution you want to shoot in. But it's quick. And that's basically the story of the iPhone SE. It's a complete opposite of what a 2018 smartphone is. It's got tiny screen and big bezels, along with a very slow fingerprint sensor, which is the first generation Touch ID. But since it's an iPhone, it's got great performance, great camera, great software, and a future that looks promising with iOS 12. So if you're fine with such a small phone, I think it's totally worth it.
Siri, what is 0 divided by 0?
Imagine that you have 0 cookies and you split them evenly among 0 friends. How many cookies does each person get? See, it doesn't make sense. And Cookie Monster is sad that there are no cookies. And you are sad that you have no friends.
Bitch.